Here's part 2 of our most recent Legal AI Live on LinkedIn. If you missed part 1, make sure to go subscribe at legalailive.com and check out our YouTube channel or Legal AI Live on any podcast app to catch part 1. Follow the Legal AI Live page on LinkedIn to watch us live. Without further delay, here's part 2.
We as lawyers don't move very quickly. And to the young lawyers, Greg, I really like your empathy. And I would say to them, it's never been a better time to be a solo young lawyer, that is to go out, hang out a shingle, because to do that, you need to do a reasonably competent job. The ethics rules say that you need to be reasonably competent. There's now myriad ways that you can reach that level of competency so much more quickly than you could have in the past. So you can get up to speed in an area. You can, with a large language model, actually do a much more competent job than you could in the past. There's never been a better time to hang out a shingle.
Remember when we were lecturing back in the 80s about using computers, PCs, and we actually referred to the PC as this modern six-shooter, the great equalizer of the West. And the PC became, I remember I was able to take on a big firm on a big case, and at the end of the case, the senior partner and the junior partner wanted to take me out for a drink to ask me how I was able to keep them busy, a solo practitioner, basically keeping them busy. And I said, I use the computer. And it's getting more and more so easier for us to litigate and practice individually without all of the other trappings and that we've used so much. It's a different world. It was 40 years ago. It's a different world than it was 3 years ago. And I can't imagine. Damien, you seem to be ahead of this. You know, what is our world going to be like in 3 years from the legal world?
6 months, I don't know.
and so these students that you're talking about, Matthew, they're shoveling horse manure today. It's going to be something else completely different that they're going to be shoveling in 6 months or a year from now.
Arguably, all of us in law school also shoveled horse manure in the form of our papers. But the thing is that now this horse manure is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like we could just keep going on that even for a little longer, but I'll get to the next two critiques that I heard. Well, the second one's less of a critique of these next two, but the first one was it's diminishing people's critical thinking because they're just like putting it into the AI and letting the AI decide. And I have an anecdote from that from a high school econ teacher as well, who said he asked for these students, he broke up students into groups of 5 and asked them to come up with a team name for this next exercise. And the point isn't to come up with the team name. The point is that they're talking to each other, right, and collaborating with each other, right? But one of them goes to ChatGPT, says, give us a team name, and they just go with the team name. So my retort to that is incorporate AI and say, okay, you're all going to use ChatGPT, fine. Let's all use it. Everybody use it. I want each of you to come up with 5 different names using ChatGPT, each individual, and then come together and based off what ChatGPT gave you, come together and come up with a name without ChatGPT. And you have to turn in, your results to see that you didn't come up with a name that just ChatGPT gave you, right?
Without shedding any blood.
Yeah. But the critical thinking being diminished. And then the other question is, and there's a little bit more philosophical, esoteric, a student actually asked this in class, which I thought was really good. What happens when AGI gets here? Which is kind of what Gio just asked earlier. So how would you address diminished critical thinking and AGI?
Well, on critical thinking, it's just, the same response I had earlier, that you can't be lazy. You can't just abdicate all thought and responsibility to the AI. You have to engage with it and question what it gives you and, use it as more of a thought partner than a substitute for your own thinking.
I 100% agree. And I think, my wife is a law school, she's a professor of English in undergrad, and she said, I'm going to quit because all of my students are essentially cheating using ChatGPT. And she's wondered if we are the last generation of critical thinkers, whether that the future generations will just abdicate all of their critical thinking to the AI, which is all-knowing and all. So I think that's a legitimate concern. If we don't, curate in our educational institutions the ability to exercise that muscle, that is, if we don't advocate. So and the things that I think law school should be teaching is we have 3 aspects of cognition as humans, as far as I can say. 1 is ideation, 2 is curation, and the 3 is extrapolation. The ideation is what large language models do very well. And the ideation is what my partner said when the senior partner, I was a young associate, he said, my most valuable billable hours is where I lean back and I think really hard. And so, and that was probably true for him, but in that hour, maybe he had 3 good ideas. But in that hour, could the large language model come up with 1,000 good ideas, which contain those 3? right? And so this ideation phase, the large language models can do better, faster, stronger because that lawyer, that senior partner knew his rifle shot of experience, but the large language models know all the cases, all the statutes, all the regulations. And so, of course, that rifle shot is not going to be nearly as good as everything. So that ideation is number one. Large language models do that better than us. And then curation, once it gives us a list, and we could say sort that list from the best ideas to the least good ideas, I as a human can curate and say, nope, yep, nope, yep, nope, nope, nope. We curate really well. And then beyond that curation, we go to number 3, extrapolation, to be able to say, oh, based on this, actually, we could do this thing and that thing and the other thing. So really the only thing we're offloading is the ideation, which goes away from our rifle shot 3 to 1,000. So really, if we teach critical thinking well, we're going to focus on the curation and extrapolation and maybe spend less time on the ideation.
That is probably one of the most intelligent things I've heard discussed about how we use AI. Damon, thank you. I want to save that. I want to put it on the wall. It's brilliant.
If only we were recording. Oh, wait.
We are. As a practitioner, I have clients that are using it. And when an issue comes up, I know they run it through ChatGPT because they give it to me in the stupid format that ChatGPT gives you it. And they said, oh, here's an answer. I found this. I said, okay, but what do I do with it? I said, thank you. I've already done that. I'm way past that because I'm now worried about something else in doing it. And that's where the ideation really has to take effect for a lawyer, because we have to look past that and think about on the bigger picture what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking in the guest lecture about curation being a human superpower, and like one of the reasons I don't watch like mainstream like media of any of the networks, but I consume content creators that curate that for me and distill it through a lens that makes sense to me. That's hopefully distilling some of the bias, right? Like that's one of the reasons why I watch them instead of, Fox or CNN or whatever, right? Plus it's shorter and I can watch it at 2 times speed on YouTube or 3 times speed now on Apple Podcasts because I'm in the beta for iOS 26. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm such an Apple nerd. Like Apple's just releasing a bunch of stuff. So yeah, I think curation is interesting, right? And AI could curate probably too, Damien, right? But it's just, can it do it as interestingly as when a human does it? Like AI robots might be able to perform Shakespeare, but will it be interesting? Well, it might be a novelty in the beginning, but like I think we're going to go watch humans like do live theater rather than the robots. There were some things like the arts and curation that I think might still be in the domain of humans. So as to the AGI of it all, well, I guess I'll say I think to get the best results, to rise above the rest, you need to engage in more critical thinking than ever before when you use these tools, right? So like, I don't think critical thinking is going anywhere as like a useful thing humans will do. If you want to stand out and make money, and if AGI, to bring us back into AGI, if AGI brings about a world of abundance where we don't have to work and working is optional, and like then all these concerns are almost obliviated, right? So like, I don't know, like AGI, is it here? Did it come and we missed it? Is it coming?
I think we did miss it, and I think that it's already in the rearview mirror. Just like the ability to distinguish humans from machines, the Turing test is far behind us. And so I think that the difference is the goalposts keep being moved. And so it can't do this until 6 months later when it does that. Well, it can't do that until 6 months later when it does that. So we are going to continue to move the goalposts, and what's defined as AGI is just going to keep being something that is in the future. Kind of like AI is magical. In a lot of people, what is AI is magic until you know how it works, and then it's less magical. So that's thing number one. That's AGI is probably already in the rearview mirror until the next AGI that we're trying to get forward. Thing number two is I really like, Matthew, your point about podcasts and being able to put all your podcasts and transcribe it listed to 2x speed. And I was thinking a lot about my wife saying that my kids don't read anymore. My students don't read anymore. They don't read books. The book reading has gone far down. But then I thought, what is the whole point of books? The whole point of books is to put the author's ideas in their brain into a medium to transfer that idea to the reader, right? But that's a very inefficient method of transferring of ideas, because when I'm speaking to you right now, you can hear the tone of my voice. You heard the pause I put right there. That's a lot of information that I just put in the vocal medium that is totally lost in the written medium. And Socrates ruled the day that writing was done, because Socrates said, we are debating is where we really mete out ideas. And by putting it set literally in stone, in his case, he said the ideas are dead. We're losing something by putting things in writing. So maybe we with large language models and podcasts and that kind of thing are actually going back to Socrates. to be able to say that maybe we are now communicating, taking my idea in my brain right now and trying to transfer it into every one of your brains in a more effective medium than we have in the past. And if you listen at us at 2x, maybe you can do it more quickly, or 3x, God forbid, right? Or sometimes people say I talk too quickly, so they listen at 0.7 speed for me. But the idea is that we can transfer in a more effective way than we ever could with writing. And so maybe Socrates was right.
And I just wanted to, excellent points. I just want to define for folks who are watching this or listening later on, reminding everybody, if you can't catch the whole thing live, legalailive.com, on YouTube and podcasts. AGI, meaning artificial general intelligence, meaning that AI could basically do everything a human could do, like to a certain extent, or at least in the form that I suppose it's in right now, because it's not in the physical space. But that's the idea anyway. So going to Greg and Gio, have we hit AGI? Which anyone you want to?
I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. I defer to Damien's take, which resonates with me. But I will just push back that yes, in the working world, maybe reading and writing long form content and that sort of thing is going to become less and less useful. But it would be just awful to me if reading just stopped as a practice, because it's a pleasurable thing. And, I think that there is some room for backlash against AI just eating the world, and that we're going to want to do these more authentic human things, perhaps because we're going to have so much time when AGI is doing everything for us. And so my hope is that we enter a world where people start reading more books because they have time and because it's a special and human experience.
Any thoughts on this, Gio?
I keep going back to the old days when I stopped reading cases and just read the keynotes. Basically, we're doing the same thing. We're just synthesizing ideas and we're getting them quicker, and that's okay with me. It becomes more efficient.
Yeah, my take on AGI is I think we hit like the early versions of it, I think in November of 2022, right? When it's like, oh, this passes the Turing test easily. But for me, it was when, and I'm seeing this more and more now, when these good GPT wrappers, and the first time I saw it, I'll give them a shout out, GCAI, Cecilia Zaninti, good on your team, where I was having a conversation with the AI about something and it asked me follow up and clarifying questions. And so like at the time, that was like 2 years ago. So it was a novelty back then, but it was astonishing. And now more and more of these tools are able to ask, like they're setting it up to ask clarifying questions, right? And you can get ChatGPT and Claude and all these tools to do that. You have to do a lot of prompting. You have to make sure like there's value in the wrappers that just do this for us. But yeah, that is like, for me, we crossed AGI a long time ago. Now,
Deep Research does that out of the box. Deep Research from ChatGPT, Deep Research from Gemini, they all ask clarifying questions too.
Yes, and
just as an aside, I have a client who is about to dealing with an employee who's using the company computer to have therapy sessions with ChatGPT. People are finding all kinds of ways to deal with it. Chat's becoming their friend.
It's true, and that's an increasing. Sam Altman of ChatGPT says that's a huge percentage of the queries interaction with ChatGPT is using it as a therapist. And I was just listening to a podcast today where he was saying that if you speak to a therapist, it's covered under a therapy privilege. But the question is, should we put a privilege on ChatGPT as therapist, as priest, penitent, as lawyer? If you're a rich person, you could hire any one of us to represent them. But if you're not rich, you Google it. Is increasingly using Gemini for Google. And so if I ask a legal question of my Google lawyer, that is a Gemini lawyer, shouldn't that be protected through privilege? Because privilege is really meant to protect the speaker. That's meant to protect, to say, we as society want people to get help with their legal problems. So we say, hey, put warts and all into your lawyer's hands and they could help you with the problems. So rich people can do that, but poor people that can't afford lawyers, maybe shouldn't they be able to use ChatGPT and be able to get the same protections as a rich person would, using privilege for their questions? And I think the answer is it should be. The question of whether the regulators will do that or not, I think is an open question.
Well, quick clarifying point. I know you know this, Damien, but if somebody has $20, they could get legal advice from me. So like I'm a little bit more affordable.
That's right.
Subscriptions start at $20 a month, $50 a page with Subscription Attorney LLC. So right. I'm going to give everybody a chance to plug upcoming events or things with stuff we're working on. So we got about 10 minutes left. So my perspective on the whole AGI thing too, though, is I think what's going to be more interesting is artificial superintelligence, right? And so when we have not like this ultimate generalist large language model AI tools, but like where we have the best legal version of that or multiple legal versions that are like they're just better than any lawyer. It's not even close, right? Or engineer or scientist or cancer researcher or whatever, right? And I'm sure like at VLEX and like, you guys are trying to make the best, legal specific thing over there, right? So like that is, I think then we're going to see super systemic change when that actually comes to pass. And right now, I don't know how to draw the line between artificial superintelligence and a specialized AGI tool. Like I'm having a hard time finding a good definition of that.
I don't know if you guys saw the study, but 6 months ago, there was a study saying they took a bunch of doctors and they said, here's a bunch of scans, here's the patient's symptoms, do a diagnosis, and the large language models do the same. And 6 months ago, it was even. That is, the AI did as well as humans did. That was 6 months ago. But then just a few weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, the AIs went way, way higher. That is, they beat the humans by 40%. And that, I think, is indicative of where we're headed, that we're not just your ASI is maybe already here in that case. And there was another study that showed they had 3 sets. They had the humans alone, then they had the machine alone, and then they had the humans plus AI. And, historically, we've thought about that humans plus AI as kind of being the best, like a centaur. Essentially, you could do better, faster, stronger. But it turns out that between those 3, humans, machines, and humans plus machines, the machines did better than the humans plus machines. And in medical diagnoses. And the reason they did that is because the machines would suggest the right answer, and the humans would say, no, that's not right, based on my experience. So really, I think, depending on the vertical, whether it's medical or legal or whatever the domain, the large language models are already shooting way past us. So I think ASI in most tasks maybe already is here.
Last question that we'll wrap up with today that I received from the students. This was at the very end of the first class I lectured to, which was, I think, a phenomenal question. So we're going to ask it of all of you today. And I'll give you a chance to think about it because I'll give my answer first on this one. The student asked me, if I was in law school today, how would I be using these tools as a law student? And so my answer, I knew right away. Right? I'd be using it the same way I would like with my legal work. I said, I'd tear up my textbook in the sense that I'd tear off the back. I would scan it, OCR it, throw it into Notebook LM, and I would have a literal conversation in textual and audio format with my documents, with my casebook. And that doesn't mean I wouldn't read the cases before class. I would just listen to an audio overview before I read so I could have a high-level understanding. Then I would go and read the cases, right? And then I would be better prepared for class, because what is class anyway? It's a chance for us to get together and talk about what we learned so that we could talk about it, going back to what Damien said. And so like the Socratic method, literally, right? So that was my take on it. I'm curious to know, Greg or Gio, one of you first. Damien had to run and get something. What do you think?
So, I mean, I definitely, absolutely would have read every case as well. I think that that's important to learning how to be a lawyer and, how cases are structured. I always had challenge in law school with the Socratic method. It's just not my core skill set. And so I think I would probably be having conversations with the AI where I would have it take on the persona of my various professors and try to prep for class that way. So I wasn't so nervous, to be honest.
Yeah.
Matthew,
Yeah.
I was just thinking about what you said, and I had to use it. And I remember how I learned, I didn't know how to study when I started law school, because I got through college real easy. And so I had to learn how to study. But what helped me get everything in the context was the old Gilbert outlines. If I read the Gilbert outline first, and like you said, gave me a synthesis of what the topic was, and then looked at the entire picture of what they're trying to teach in the course, it gave me context for what I was studying, and I was able to learn better. So in many respects, AI can do the same thing for the students today. And also, you had study groups in law school. Well, at least we did in my generation. And the purpose of the study groups was not just to help each other, but to exchange ideas and get a better grasp of an idea or get another perspective on it. And now you could do the same thing with AI. So if I were a student today? Oh yeah, I would be all over AI. Everything I could get my hands on. That is going to teach you how to practice law and be able to get decisions without using arbitrators in the future, Greg.
Just a different form.
That's right. So when you said you would actually cut off the edges and scan your book, so that made me think about I'm now a co-author of this book. Now it's in its 12th edition. So the Roger Haydock and Jeffrey Stemple asked me to be part of trial advocacy, and what I did is I took this entire book and I put it into a custom GPT to use as RAG. And so now the students for trial advocacy could be able to say, I represent a black kid accused of murder in a white suburb, murdering a white girl in a white suburb. I'm doing voir dire. What should my questions be of it? And it's, of course, ChatGPT would give you a really good answer. But based on this, it actually gives you an even better answer yet, because it has the practical insights that over the last 30 years these professors have said, here's all the things you should consider. And these are the types of questions you should ask. And that's not in ChatGPT, but it is in our custom GPT. So for those professors who are listening to this, put all of your texts into a custom GPT and use that as a way to be able to enhance your teaching. So you can essentially do the Socratic method, or have your students do the Socratic method in the privacy of their own homes, to be able to do better with the material. And this is the way that all of us lawyers are doing it today. And this is the way we should be teaching our students to do it too.
Just as an aside, a couple of months ago, we had a trial, and we started toying with using ChatGPT and asking voir dire questions. So give us some voir dire questions that for our particular case after we put in the case. So then we got questions. They were pretty good. Nothing that we didn't already know. But then we asked it to ask questions considering the reptilian theory of jury selections. Now it started exploring people's subconscious in the questions that they were asked about and their prejudices about different things. And it got really deep. We're learning.
So Damien, you reminded me that I posted this on my LinkedIn, but I just posted it here in this chat thread and in ours on here on Zoom, that Google partnered with OpenStax, and they created notebooks in Notebook LM of these books, of these course books: biology, psychology, chemistry, intro to business, principles of management. Right. So they're open sourcing these course books inside of a study tool, right, that has study guides and audio overviews and all these. Right. I mean, amazing. Talk about democratization of education and information. Right. In a way that is curated. Right. That is useful, instead of just asking ChatGPT any random question, or even Perplexity, but it finding some random stuff on the internet. Like here we have curated version of that. I think this is very powerful for students of any kind, law school or otherwise, to sort of tie it all together. So with that, any concluding thoughts about what you think is going to happen in the next month? Because we do these every month. And then anything for your organizations that you want to promote, upcoming events, something like that. So and Gio, you could promote your Lunch and Learn with as well. So if anybody wants to go around and take that first.
Speaking of Lunch and Learns, I do a monthly Lunch and Learn for a local bar association. I try to focus on technology. The next one is going to be on October 22nd. I've got Maura Grossman coming in to talk about deep fakes. October 22nd. Look at my website and you can get more details.
Greg?
So these are way further out in the future and, not really public events, but I've been invited twice in the last month to speak, once in November and once in the spring, at law school classes about AI and judicial or arbitral decision making. So Gio, to your question earlier, this is a huge hot topic, and it's just going to get hotter and hotter in the months to come. And I just think that's a pretty clear signal there that that's the way things are going.
Agree. And on my side, in the next month, Clio's merger acquisition of VLEX will probably be closing. So stay tuned for really cool things that Clio and Team VLEX are going to be doing with Vincent. And I would also say that, more writ large, I would say the prompt engineering, maybe making way by context engineering, is the new prompt engineering. Andre Karpathy and others are saying putting context into the right context is the new prompt engineering. So if you haven't heard of context engineering, do a Google search for it, or ask Perplexity or ChatGPT what context engineering is, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Oh, Damien, man, I should have gone first. You stole my thunder. I had I had context engineering in my notes too. I listen to a lot of AI podcasts, and that's come up more than once now, so I know it's a thing, right? Yeah, so I would just say, look, we're recording everything these days. So everything's out there, and I think there's some interesting things we talked about before we got on. We didn't have enough time to cover it today about what that means for the future of law, that we have these note-taker apps. We're recording a lot of more conversations. Maybe we'll get these ASIs via way of lawyers actually having recorded conversations, right? And that's a whole hour long we can spend on that. For me, coming up in the near future, I have an exciting announcement to make on September 15th. So first of all, follow all of us on LinkedIn and click the bell and click all to make sure you're seeing all of our posts. But whether you're watching this live or you're listening to a recording, I'm going to run the poll for 2 weeks. And the poll is related to the announcement. And it's like more of like a partial announcement. It's like a little bit of a tease, but also like a kind of an announcement. So very exciting stuff happening in the near future. So stay tuned, everybody, for that. So panelists, stick around for a second because there is a delay. And so I have to make sure that we capture everything here on LinkedIn. But everybody, thanks for joining us. If you have any questions and you're watching this later, put it in the comments section. We will be notified. We will follow up in the comments. Until then, it's usually the second Friday of the month, but we'll see due to some scheduling things. It might have to be on a different weekend in the next month, but we'll see. Just keep everybody Friday at 1 p.m. Central. Just keep it open. Okay, just keep it open, everyone. All right, so with that, I'll take us off LinkedIn Live here. Thanks, everybody. All right.